The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question to the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session once again. It is February 2nd, 2025, and as you can see on the map, not much has changed. Now, before I start with the overall updates that have taken place in Ukraine, I want to make this very clear as like black and white, and arguably as water itself. The former Soviet Union, and when I mean former Soviet Union, I'm referring to like not just the Baltics, but to Russia itself, Ukraine, and Belarus, and arguably Moldova. At this time of the year, it is absolutely freezing cold. Like right now in Kiev, the weather is, let me look it up right on Google right now. It is 35 degrees Celsius, which in, I think Celsius terms, no, that was Fahrenheit, my bad. Okay, Fahrenheit-wise, it is 35 degrees in Kiev, like right now, while Celsius-wise, it is 2 degrees. That is insanely cold. And also, because of the amounts of snow, rain, and whatever weather leads to mud, it has resulted in the front line itself slowing down. Now, some people believe that the front has slowed down significantly because of the recent strikes on the Russian oil refineries, and that it is struggling to like power up all their vehicles. Some say it's because of the recent economic issues that Russia has been having that are causing the slowdown in advances. I mean, people will have all their conspiracy theories all they want, but as far as I know, the weather is truly kicking in like, the former Soviet Union, and because of that, it is hurting both sides' ability to either defend themselves or to go on the offensive. There's a reason why throughout the entirety of the Russo-Ukrainian war, since 2022, not 2014, there's a reason why neither side likes to go on the offensive, well, as much as they do, in winter, because winter is a hell on earth in the former USSR. Territories, that is. And because of that, it leads to the front lines freezing. Kinda. And yeah, so hopefully you will all understand why today's video might be shorter than usual. Like, I am so sorry if I'm not providing you with a lot of content, but I'm being serious here. And I would never lie to you when it comes to why the videos are this long or this short or anything like that. I'm always going to be transparent with you guys if there's nothing like much to share about. But also, some say it's because of the political arena right now between Trump and Putin, but I strongly disagree with that. Because there's no negotiations right now between Russia and Ukraine. None. Or even with the United States. So we can kind of forget about that. And Trump is a little too busy right now going to economic warfare with China, Mexico, and Canada, for God's sakes. He doesn't give a shit about Ukraine. He doesn't. So, yeah, anyway, let's talk about what has happened on the front. And yeah, let's get this over and done with. First of all, we're going to talk about the Southern Donetsk direction, aka Velika Novosilka front. So everything has been cleared here. Literally. And also, by the way, Syriac was on a, like, 1-week hiatus. I don't know why he went on hiatus, but maybe it was for psychological issues or something like that, or maybe he wanted to go on vacation. I don't know. None of my business. But anyway, he updated the map. It's now all up to date, and Velika Novosilka is under Russian control firmly, as you can see here, along with its outskirts, with the exception of these empty fields here. But yeah, it's done. The Russians actually celebrated the capture of Velika Novosilka in this soccer field here, which has been long abandoned by anyone who wanted to actually use it. And after 2 years of being a thorn on the side of the Russians, they finally dealt with Velika Novosilka, and it opens the door to Gulaipol here and to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast from the south. Now, moving on a little bit towards the former Kharkiv direction. I say former because Kharkiv is not really... I mean, is it really still the Kharkiv front? I don't know. Probably no more, if you ask me. So as you can see, the Russians have expanded their control outside of the village of Yantarny, and because of that, they advanced into the village of Dachny, and it looks like they have already taken control of around 40 to 50% of the village of Dachny, and this village, as you can see, is outside of Kharkiv. And also, because of the recent advances, Ukrainians in the villages of Constantinople and Ulaki are in big trouble. So they're going to have to evacuate these two villages very soon. And yeah, I just don't see a reason for them to stay unless they want to get completely slaughtered or if they want to surrender willingly to the Russians. But the big report, though, in this direction is what's going on in Andriivka. Now, Andriivka is one of the key villages before the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast administrative border. If Andriivka falls to Russia, then the Russians can just simply casually steamroll the whole empty farmlands here and enter Dnipropetrovsk without any problems. Now, I did hear that Ukrainians are trying to fortify the border with Dnipropetrovsk, but I think it's too little too late. And I don't think they're going to have enough manpower to stop the Russian entry into the province itself. And also, there's a lot of questions regarding what the Russians are going to do once they reach this border. Will they go further west, or will they stop at the border approximately? Because if they enter Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, the Russians, by that point, are beyond the point of no return when it comes to their goals in Ukraine. Forget this speculation of Russia wanting to take control of 4 provinces, Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, Lugansk. Forget about it. If they enter Dnipropetrovsk, then basically the entirety of Ukraine, by that point, will become something of a, question for Russia, like the entirety of Ukraine. I mean, the left bank, Ukraine itself, will then be, I guess, a sitting duck if Dnipropetrovsk were to be penetrated by the Russians. But yeah, so yeah, again, as you can see, looking at Andriivka again, the Russians have taken a small but significant chunk of the village itself, and even Deep State even confirmed that the Russians have entered and are contesting for this village right now. And again, as I said, if Andriivka falls, then you can definitely be assured that Russians are going to go for Dnipropetrovsk Oblast in some shape or form. It's definitely going to happen. And then going up north, as you can see, Novoandriivka has been cleared by the Russians. And even though Syriac has not updated the map yet, Srebine is actually being contested right now by the Russians. And if the Russians take this village, the village of Zaporozhye, not to be confused with the big city of Zaporozhye. Funny, they ran out of names. If these 2 farm villages here, then it's just this tiny... I mean, the rest of these are just simply a cakewalk to the Dnipropetrovsk border. So, basically, the final battle for this area will come down to the fate of these two villages, farming areas. And if they were to fall to Russia, then nothing's pretty much going to stop them at this point. They're just going to roll until the border, and they might enter it and go for Novopavlivka, which in turn goes to Mazova, the first sizable settlement for the Russians in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, should they be able to enter it. But I digress. For all we know, they could just stop at the border, or they will go further west. But also, keep an eye out on the village of Uspinivka. A decent chunk of it is under Russian control right now. And also, Udachne is still being contested. To me, the Russians and the Ukrainians are fighting tooth and nail for this village right now because of the fact that it's literally adjacent to this mine right here, like this industrial area, and the fact that it borders Dnipropetrovsk. Literally, if the Russians take Udachny, then it's pretty much game over for the Ukrainians in this area here. Like, everything like here, all the way down here to Ndrivka, will easily fall to Russia. Like, nothing will be able to stop them from reaching the border with Dnipro. Just nothing will. Russians have also reportedly advanced a little up north of Katline, and have even advanced a little bit into Zevry My bad if I mispronounced it. And also, I even heard some reports of Russians advancing in the village of Lusovka, or Lysivka in Ukrainian. But yeah, that's going to do it for the Pokrovsk/Dnipropetrovsk front. Now, in this direction here, Russians have reportedly completed their capture of Baranivka or Baranovka, and this whole area here, like this crossroads section, is being contested. I think it's a gray zone at this point. And again, if the Russians are able to successfully cross this road, then they'll be able to besiege and take all these villages here, which would in turn lead to possibly a encirclement, or turning the cities of both Pokrovsk and Mayanograd into cauldrons, like twin cauldrons at this point. And then in the city of Toretsk, it looks like the battle for this place is actually over. Here's the thing. Syriac has not colored it in yet, but apparently the mine has fallen, and the village of Kemsky, I don't know why that was even separated from Toretsk, has all fallen to Russia. So Toretsk is now under de facto Russian control, and despite some attempts by Ukrainians to conduct a counterattack, it doesn't seem like it's gone anywhere, and yeah, Toretsk has fallen to Russia. Then going up north, we got the infamous town of Chazov Yar, a place that was like the center of attention for like 1 to 2 months, and then suddenly Russia surprised everybody with their Kharkiv offensive, like north of the city. They didn't really go too far. Like, they only went as far as, I guess, the outskirts of Lipsy and I guess Volchansk, but they didn't really go that far after that. And honestly, it almost seems as if that was intentional, just to distract the Ukrainians from Donetsk Oblast. And if that was the case, it definitely worked. But if it was obviously an attempt at a wild offensive, well, it failed. But I digress. So as you can see, the Russians have cleared this forested area here. And as you could also see, there's a lot of gray zone here. A lot of gray zone in the southern Chazov Yar area. And it looks like the central Chazov Yar is pretty much encircled, like, or put in a cauldron at least. Like, there's no way Ukrainians are going to be able to survive here unless they surrender. And then there's also been disputed reports about the fate of northern Chazov Yar, but it looks like the Russians control it still, despite Ukrainian counterattack attempts. And so Chazov Yar is probably going to fall this month or in March. I'll definitely keep an eye on it as the week or weeks, if not a whole month, goes by. But Chazov Yar is definitely nearing the end. And once this town falls, everything in this area here will basically start falling apart for the Ukrainians, because Russians will have the high ground, And yeah, it's going to become hell on earth for the Ukrainians to hold. And I don't think they're going to be able to hold it. I think the Russians are going to be able to make it to the outskirts of Konstantinivka and just rain a lot of fiery hell on this city to the point where the Ukrainians may not be able to even try to fight for it. I mean, if all goes well for the Russians, they may be able to encircle Konstantinivka from like 3 directions, from the east, from the south, and from the west. Should this happen, then yeah, they're definitely going to evacuate. They won't put up a fight for it. Next up, I heard there have been rumors that the Russians attempted to advance in the Seversk direction, but I think it's too early to say if this is anything special, but I'll keep an eye on it. But for now, it's a nothing burger. There's also reports that Russians started advancing again in the Liman direction, but I'm going to not even talk about it too much because it's too small to even give a damn about. And also, the Russians are just again, they're a couple villages away of recapturing the entire Lugansk Oblast from Ukraine. And as you can see, we're now in the Kupiansk section, or the eastern Kharkiv direction, as some people would say, or Kharkov. Nothing going on in Kupiansk itself, but if you go a little up north, interesting things have been happening as of late. Zabatne has fallen to Russia, along with the entirety of Dorichina. Now, this capture, even though this place, well, is arguably small, this is actually pretty significant. The reason why is because this is the first time since 2022 where the Russians actually had control over a sizable, like, a notable settlement in the Kharkiv Oblast. This is, like, the first time they've been able to cement themselves in this province since the infamous Ukrainian WoW offensive in September 22. Like, I'm not joking. And also, according to Divjin and a series of, like, other, like, mappers that try to figure out where all the Ukrainian fortifications are, it appears that a big chunk of the Kharkiv region is not really defended well by the Ukrainians. It's nowhere as defended as Donetsk is. So if the Russians were to attempt maybe a WoW offensive, or at least a medium-sized assault on the Kharkiv Oblast, they may gain a lot of territory. Now, I don't know if it would be as much as the Ukrainian counteroffensive was in 2022, but judging by what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing on the ground, especially through the maps itself, or themselves, sorry, a Russian offensive in Kharkiv Oblast would be a complete nightmare for the Ukrainians. Not just from a military point of view, but from a PR point of view as well. Because as all of you know, Zelensky is obsessed, along with Budanov, of keeping Ukraine's image untainted. So if the Russians were to undo a lot of the damage that the Ukrainians have done to them in 2022, like September to be exact, then the West is really indeed supporting a losing war. Like, a lot of people will start to wake up here and they'll realize, you know something? Ukraine is cooked, and there's nothing we can do to save them. And I honestly believe the situation in Kharkov is going to get only furtherly bad for the Ukrainians. Sorry if I couldn't put those words together well, but the fact is, Ukrainian army is having a lot of problems right now. And if the Russians enter Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, along with continuing their advance in the Kharkiv region too, the government in Kiev is going to have to make a difficult decision on who to commit more resources to, because they're running out of troops. And I honestly don't think that forced mobilization of 18 to 25-year-olds, like guys around my age or so, is going to help them. In fact, I think it's too little too late to save Ukraine. It really is. And a lot of people are starting to realize that too in the West, even though they don't want to openly admit it. But the thing is, Ukraine will soon be in a situation where it will have no choice but to admit that they're actually in deep, deep trouble, territorial-wise. And all this talk about Russia collapsing and Russia losing the war will vanish. Literally. Once Russia enters Dnipropetrovsk, and if the Russians are able to conduct a successful offensive in the Kharkiv Oblast, then you cannot say that Ukraine is winning anymore. You now have to start saying without question of a doubt that Russia is winning. Like, we would be going back to like pre-September 2022 levels of Russia winning. And then finally, we got Kursk. The Russians have continued their advances, I guess, from this direction here. And apparently they have indeed locked up the Nikolaevo-Dorino village and have also started fighting for the village of Sever-Delikovo. And if they take this, they're going to be at the border with Sumy Oblast. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a small, like maybe a limited like buffer operation in Sumy too, just to ensure that Ukrainians don't try to attack Kursk again. I mean, I'm sure they'll try again, along with Bryansk, but the problem, though, is, as I said in one of my previous videos, the surprise element is not there anymore for the armed forces of Ukraine. The Russians now know that they have to do something about their borders in Belgrade, Bryansk, and Kursk. And because the surprise element is not there anymore, the Ukrainians are now resorting to attacking Russia with drones, with Storm Shadows, with ATACMS missiles. I mean, they literally have nothing else left other than just to do, well, that. So, with that being said, that is all I have to say. I'm sorry if the video was short, but I warned you ahead of time that it would be very short. I mean, I don't really know what else to report on today. Oh, shit. It actually went the full, like, past 20 minutes or so. Okay, that's fine. Sorry if this is sounding like a live stream, but it is what it is. I'm an amateur content creator after all, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm just here to provide you all with the news. And yeah, I hope all of you found it informative. I also hope every single one of you had a great Chinese New Year, Year of the Snake. And yeah, I'll see you all next time, everybody. So take care and peace out. See you next week. Bye.